Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions.
We are very excited to host today's event, Masterclass, Understand the Fundamentals of Architecting on AWS. Presenting today's topic is Jino Joseph. Jino is an experienced trainer with over 5 years of expertise in working with diverse age groups and various technologies. With a strong belief in customer satisfaction and goal achievement, he's dedicated to delivering exceptional training experiences. As a Microsoft certified instructor, he has successfully delivered training to clients across the globe, catering to individuals with different skill sets in the IT industry. In addition to teaching, Gino takes on the role of a mentor, providing course guidance and leadership to new joiners.
Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the Cloud practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com.
In today's session, you'll learn the fundamentals of building IT infrastructure on the AWS platform. Also, you will explore the best practices and design patterns for architecting optimal IT solutions on the AWS Cloud.
And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic.
Hey, Gino, thank you so much for joining us today.
Uh, Hey, hi, welcome everyone to this webinar as we explore and understand the fundamentals of architecting on AWS. Let me quickly introduce myself and probably I will walk you through and guide you through the agenda, what we propose to discuss as a part of this webinar. My name is Jino Joseph. I'm an technical trainer carrying 6+ years of experience into the domain of training, imparting different technologies. Predominantly, I deal with cloud technologies, especially with respect to on the Azure front, on the data platform, on the artificial intelligence platform, or the power platform. I've also been involved with various trainings with respect to certain open source technologies and I'm very fascinated towards imparting technical training and interacting with my learners that are there. And cloud is something which has been which is there, which is emerging, and this is something that corporates have taken into. And when it comes to cloud technology, AWS is something which, of course, is one of the recommended service providers that needs to be discussed about. So hopefully this webinar makes it a lot in terms of understanding the fundamentals as we architect our workloads and our solutions very specifically using AWS for that matter. So comprehensively within the next say 90 minutes of discussions, we will try to explore about the fundamentals very specific to the architecting your cloud solutions that are there. All right. So this is what we propose to discuss, right, as a part of this particular webinar, where we understand the fundamentals of architecting on AWS. We will understand a particular few services that we are going to be discussing, and we have a proposed agenda that we will be discussing as a part of today's the short webinar that we have in. So let me give you a walkthrough of what we propose to discuss, and we will quickly understand about what we are going to be taking that forward in terms of understanding what is a well architected framework for that matter. So whenever we are building certain cloud solutions that are there, it becomes very important to be discussed of the fact that we need cloud solutions to be well framed, well architected, and that meets the business requirements that are there. And as a part of that, AWS recommends certain say principles, certain policies that we need to take it into account, and of course, we put those practices into action in terms of achieving the kind of business goals to cater the kind of goals that needs to be say reaped out of it. And then that's what we will look into be understanding as a part of our first module as we understand the well architected framework, where I will be discussing, we will try to understand what well-architected framework is. We will understand the various tools that are some certain tools, certain pillars. We will understand also about specific, say, the terminologies that will be very important in terms of understanding cloud solutions. And then we will look into understanding about the AWS global infrastructure, certain, say, statistical figures to represent and how AWS has been contributing towards scaling your solutions, applications that are there to be implemented on the cloud for that matter. We will try to understand the footprint and the kind of leverage, the kind of say the market pool and say the kind of availability of services being scattered, distributed across the globe, how AWS has been able to capture that specifically and making it more reliable, making it more say and available in terms of implementing any particular kind of solution that you're looking into. Then in module, then as we proceed further, we will try to understand certain offerings, okay, as a part of architecting your solutions. We will try to understand about Amazon S3, all right, and we will also understand about Amazon S3 Glacier for that matter. So of course, I will try to introduce, we will try to cover up understanding, laying the foundations for what S3 is, to store your particular information, object informations that are there as a storage service. And we will also understand S3 Glacier for that matter. All right. We will try to understand when on a particular scenario is S3 Glacier recommended a viable solution, or when do we have to go for S3 as compared to an S3 Glacier. We'll try to differentiate those aspects, and we will take this very specific aspect to be covered as we are implementing and static website for that matter in your step number 5. And then in your step number 4, as we cover this part, we will understand about how do you choose a particular region as and when you are architecting a particular solution or a workload that you want to have it on the AWS cloud. What are the factors that can contribute? What are the factors that can influence when it comes to your cloud solutions to be say deployed making use of AWS platform. So we will see those factors, we will have a discussion around that. I will walk you through certain features that make it more viable, and then we will look towards I will demonstrate to you how you can particularly host a static website using your AWS cloud for that matter, making it publicly available. So you will see that whatever we have discussed as a part of your architected framework, your say the data center regions that you choose, availability zones, Amazon S3 being specifically being used in terms of say hosting your static website that's there. And then we will try to understand as a part of what we would have discussed here being implemented in terms of what hosting that static website for that matter. And we will take it further around there, and we will take it to quickly understand what and where things to get proceeded with respect to the AWS architectures being used in terms of implementing cloud solutions. So let's quickly get started and let's try to understand and walk you through. Let me try to walk you through to give you a proper definition. Let me give you try to make you understand what does it mean by a well architected framework. All right. So what happens is that before we get into or say understand a well architected framework, it becomes very eminent, very important that we discuss the fact that whenever you are trying to build systems on the cloud, all right, you need to formulate, you need to take it into consideration that factors that can contribute towards the success of the business that is going to be deploying those workloads for that matter. And that's where to address that area very specifically is where we consider AWS well architected framework. As you can see here, where with your well architected framework, you're trying to provide or you're gonna say prescribe certain practices, all right, certain guidelines or certain protocols, you might say state it in that manner, which will be used or which can directly contribute towards what creating reliable, secure, efficient, and cost-effective systems in the cloud for that matter. Because your your well-architected framework of your AWS is going to make you understand what are the pros, what are the cons of the decisions that you may make while building your systems using your AWS, which has a direct impact, making it more reliable or not reliable, or making it more safe, secure, efficient, that matter. So there are factors that are going to be taken that can directly contribute towards these aspects, and that needs to be very much being addressed. That's what your AWS well-architected frameworks tries to address here. So when you do that very specifically, all right, you will be able to adopt certain practices, all right, as a part of your well-architected framework. You will be able to adopt certain practices, and you with that you will be able to identify those areas wherever there is a need for improvement, wherever you want to have and you want to design better and say viable solutions to be implemented on the AWS cloud. So you will be able to measure, all right, you will be able to measure the architecture based upon these formulated guidelines or say the prescribed measures that we take it into account using the AWS well-architected framework that is there. And then, of course, as I stated earlier, right, this ensures that what your business achieves the kind of success as and when deploying your applications on the AWS cloud. And then you will, of course, you will have or you will formulate or you will try to address certain questions, all right, which will be used to evaluating the qualities of your system that is there, okay, and the probable remediations that would be required. And that's very interesting aspect, right? So because it's not just going to be evaluating, okay, the probable considerations that needs to be adopted in terms of what achieving the kind of goals, all right, so that ensuring that your systems are best implemented, are best integrated into the kind of goal that you're trying to achieve. And as we discuss this very specifically, as we try to understand AWS well-architected framework, all right, you will see that to contribute towards this framework, the frame will consist of six pillars that are going to be contributing towards making it more or creating more reliable, secure, and efficient systems on the cloud using AWS for that matter being. All right. So we will discuss that in the next, coming slides that are there. And to understand that how these, six pillars and how individually these six pillars can be taken into account in terms of making your say reliable or say reliant cloud solutions using AWS for that matter being. And then, of course, just a sideline, we will see this later. There's a very interesting tool, which is your AWS WA, which is your AWS well-architected tool, all right, which can be used very specifically in the cloud, which will provide you with what a consistent process, all right, will provide you with the processes via which you will be able to review, measure your architecture that you would have implemented or designed very specifically, which adheres to AWS well architected framework for that matter be. So making it more reliant, making it more framed very specifically, all right. This framework is something that intends for your architects, your developers, your operation team members to understand very specifically, to understand what are the best practices and the best strategies that can be taken into account when you want to design and you want to operate a workload on the cloud. And then further on that, it will give you also about the implementation details and the architectural patterns that you need to take into consideration as a part of making use of AWS platform for that matter. Having understood this, let's quickly get into understanding the pillars as we discussed a bit ago, right? The six pillars. Let's quickly understand what are these pillars that are going to be structuring or that are going to be supporting your well-architected framework for your cloud systems to be implemented on the AWS. So the first pillar that we need to understand, or what AWS put forwards as a part of your AWS WA framework, which is your well-architected framework, is your operational excellence that you're see, which we did address a bit ago, right? Any solution, any kind of system that you're trying to deliver, of course, if it doesn't add value to your business, right, it is of no gain for the companies or the organizations that who want to deploy it. So what your operational excellence tries to convey is that as a pillar of your well-architected framework is that it will provide you with the ability to support the development and run your workloads in a very much effective manner. Not only that, execution of not only your workloads, rather, as and when you are operating with your workloads, your AWS considers capturing the insights of the operations that are there, all right? And those insights can very much be taken into consideration for driving your processes in an improved and in an enhanced manner for that matter. So you can adapt procedures, you can adapt processes based upon the insights captured, based upon the operations that have been executed, and your AWS is fully potential in terms of ensuring that your operations are executed in an excellent manner in that level to completely evolve and then to provide you with to provide the customers with a much value of what a business goals being achieved for that matter. Secondly, we have the second pillar as a part of your AWS well-architected framework is its security pillar. Now, any solution, any system, all right, whether it's on your prem, whether it's on your cloud, either the way, until and unless you ensure your systems is secure, that's something which can be a big flaw for that matter, right? So as and when you are implementing your cloud systems, all right, especially when you are using AWS as a platform, uh, you are trying to ensure that your whether it's your data, whether it's your systems, whether your assets that are going to be managed, your resources, so on and so on, they are being made accessed in a safe and a secure manner for that matter. So you will ensure that your cloud, your whatever the assets or your resources that are supposed to be safe, that are going to be pumped into, that are going to be injected into, or that are going to be loaded into your, say, AWS cloud, are going to be accessed in a secure manner. So you ensure security in a safe and a compliant manner. You That's what your security pillar ensures to be. Thirdly, reliability of yes, any particular technology, any particular say services that you try to consume, and the moment you venture into AWS cloud, what you're looking at is that you're looking at ways to implement the functionality is being tested and tried for that matter. So you will ensure that whatever the functionalities or the services that you're trying to consume as a part of what running your workloads on the cloud, they have been tested very well throughout its life cycle. Because reliability is very much important, because this is where you test the ability of the workload to perform the right functionality for which it is being crafted for, or for which it is being created for. And as a result, you will ensure that, okay, it functions correctly, it functions consistently throughout the life cycle and throughout the interactions of different services that it is going to be integrated with. As a result, you will bring into consideration, all right, those factors via which you will be able to operate and test that workload, all right, to ensure that your, say, the workload remains totally reliable, all right, and you will apply certain best practices ensuring that you have reliable workloads on the AWS cloud, all right. And the fourth pillar is definitely is your performance efficiency, which you can see it on the screen, okay. As it's mentioned very specifically, you will look into ways to ensure that you use your resources, okay, in an efficient manner. Now that's very important, especially when you are consuming services on the cloud, all right. You're consuming certain say application services that are going to be consumed, and you are going to provision them, all right. So what happens is that your efficiency is very important, in the sense that maybe with respect to the changes that might happen, or what the adaptability that needs to be taken into account, or the kind of, say, resource requirements that needs to be addressed. In either the way, the performance shouldn't be hampered, and you will be able, or you will look into ways via which you will be able to deliver the changes, the demand for the changes that are happening, the requirements that are supposed to be made available in terms of its resources, and so on and so on. So that's what your performance efficiency ensures, that irrespective of the incoming traffic, the infrastructure that needs to be provisioned, you ensure that you are going to be you're going to be delivering your solutions, or you're going to be making your services available in an efficient manner, ensuring the utmost performance to be taken into account. And then you will also look into ways via which you want to run your systems that can run your achieve your business goals at the lowest price point, and that is where the pillar of your cost optimization speaks all about. So you take it into consideration, of course, whenever you are consuming your resources, all right, whether it's your compute, whether you take up, all right, whether it's your data sets that you take it, whatever may be, there are n number of services that you would be consuming for that matter, and cost optimization is that pillar that tries to address that. you achieve those business values running different systems and the services at the lowest price point, because that's very important from the customer standpoint of view, because that becomes with the scale in which certain organizations would be working into, cost can be a big matter of concern that needs to be addressed. So AWS takes that into account as a part of optimizing your cost for that matter. And finally, you also have what? The sustainability factor coming into picture, the sustainability pillar coming into picture. So when we say sustainability, all right, you are trying to introduce aspects, introduce say factors and components via which you will ensure that you reduce the consumption of what? The energy. All right, you increase the efficiency in terms of what? Balancing your resources and making it available and share, making it say balanced with respect to how the workloads are going to be shared and how your resources are going to be provisioned, so that you ensure that only the necessary resources are being consumed, only the necessary resources are you end up paying for only for those resources in a sustainable manner. So whether it's in terms of energy, whether in terms of cost, whether in terms of resource consumption, and of course ensuring the maximum benefit in terms of say deploying your workloads on the AWS cloud, sustainability ensures that in a sustained manner, impacting the working of your systems, you make sure that your AWS well-architected framework adheres to these factors. So what did we try to understand with respect to these the pillar of AWS is that the pillars of AWS is that we try to understand that it takes into account in its totality, all right, when it comes to a system being implemented on the AWS cloud, you take it into its totality to ensure that you give the best experience, all right, you make it more reliable, all right, the performance, and of course, with respect to the customer, you ensure all the factors that can be taken into account in terms of helping the customers achieve the business goal or the business value as and when they are using the platform of AWS for that matter. So when a well-architected framework has been discussed, you need to take these aspects very specifically. So whenever you choose a particular resource, you deploy a particular service, all right, the kind of integration that we are going to be looking into, definitely these aspects are something that needs to be taken into account for that matter. Now, as we take and as we cover or as we try to understand the well architected framework in with respect to AWS, all right, you will see certain key terminologies being used, all right, understanding from the way how it's going to be architected, and these words and terminologies will be very key essential, which I believe will be very important as we take it and as you will be deploying your cloud solutions using AWS platform. So just few key terminologies just to make you understand and make you say well versed as and when you will see that whenever you're working with your cloud solutions, these terminologies coming up, just to be on the same page and just to understand that this is what this represents and this is what this means. Let's quickly try to understand what these key terminologies are for somebody who's very new to say cloud or say AWS. These terminologies can be very much beneficial. So let's lay the fundamental aspects to these key terminologies and then quickly get it through to the next part that is there. So the first terminology that I want to address is with respect to, you will see that as and when you are architecting a cloud solution, all right, using AWS as your component that is there. Now, what's a component? A component is that just a part of a solution. You can think that it's a part of a solution or a system that you are trying to deploy in AWS. It's true. So that part of a system or that part of a particular solution that you're trying to deploy, which you call it as component, can take up the form of particularly a code. All right, it can take up the form of a code. It might be something where you would have used very specifically to specify your configurations that are there, or you might be looking at ways to say use certain AWS resources that are there, which you might use it for what delivering the kind of requirement that you're looking into. So your any component, whether it's your code, your resources, your data assets, whatever that may be very specifically, it will have what? A particular unit of ownership that is there, and it will be acted, or that component will be decoupled from the other components. It's going to be it's going to be considered as a single entity for that matter, where of course you can assign certain access controls, privileges, and so on and so on, whether it's your code, your resources, your say data assets that are there. Definitely, that's very much possible in your AWS framework that is there. So your component can be can take up any of these shapes that are there. And then what we have in the next level is that a workload, right? Now you would have heard me for the past 3 or 2 slides that we discussed. I repeatedly used to say that workload, workload, workload. So see, your workload is nothing but the combination, or it's something which combines the different set of components that we just discussed a bit ago, right? So in order to achieving say a kind of a business goal, your workload is something that can combine a number of what components that are there. So it will use different components, and in its totality, these components when combined together will form the workload, and these workloads are something that will be used to deliver the kind of business goal or the business value that you're looking at. All right. And these business values very specifically is where based upon these business values, these components that are going to be combined together will be where your businesses and your technology will start, or your technical leaders within the level, they will start communication about, because that conveys a lot. What they are trying to implement very specifically. So you will use these components integrated very specifically, and you will use this for the communication that to happen on that level of where you see that the architected framework, or the architecture that you're trying to build in with respect to a workload achieves the kind of goal in terms of whether transiting of services, transiting of data, and services that are going to be consumed for that matter. Then what we have is architecture. All right. So what architecture says, all right, is that uh, your architecture tries to convey how all your components which combined together forms the workload are going to work in a cohesive manner. All right. So your architecture specifically says that, or your architecture takes it into account very specifically how your particular components are going to be communicating. All right. How the interaction between services are going to be taken into consideration. You might use certain architectural diagrams for that matter being to communicate, or say to depict how particular workload interactions are going to be happening on the cloud, and that conveys in its totality what you have architected based upon the components that you're chosen. And then fourth, you have certain milestones. The term itself is very self-explanatory. Your milestones will represent those part of your life cycle of your system that has been implemented or deployed on the cloud. So your milestones will mark certain changes that would have occurred to your architecture as a part of whether you would have done certain designing, all right, whether you would have done certain implementation, whether you would have tested it, whether you have deployed it, or whether you have rolled out that into a particular production scenario. So each of these aspects would be very much being very important, all right, as and when you are trying to architect, or as and when you're trying to deploy a particular service on the cloud, or a solution on the cloud for that matter. And these milestones will be taken into that account. And then we also have another terminology, which is the technology portfolio, which is the collection of workloads, okay, which is the collection of the workloads that are required for your business to operate for that matter. So your technology portfolio will be something which is taken by, or which an organization might have in, and it will specify what are those components, what are the workloads that will be required for that particular business to be operating for that matter. Finally, you will also have what the component, or the terminology being used as a part of what uh, these terminology as a part of architecting your cloud solutions on the AWS cloud, and that is level of effort. Now, the level of effort, the term, let's go with the term itself. Let's play around with the term, the level of effort. So here you are trying to, with respect to level of effort, you're trying to categorize the kind of amount of time, the effort, the kind of complexity that might be involved with implementing a particular kind of system or a solution. All this can be categorized as what the level of effort. So it can be, in certain cases, it can be high, it can be medium, it can can be low, right? So when I say high, it might, for example, implementing that might take weeks and months. All right. Probably when I say it's medium, that can be say some a couple of days or say a particularly a week or so as such. And when I say low, the level of effort is very low. It's very quick. It's very rapid, right? You might take put that into action in a multiple in certain hours or say multiple days for that matter, and which can be again been broken down into what certain tasks that you're looking into. So organizations need to consider what is the size, right? They need to understand what is the amount of time, what is the effort that would be required, what kind of complexity will be involved as and when you are trying to say build a particular solution, all right, that can be deployed on the AWS cloud, and that is what your level of effort tries to address as a part of it. So what you see here is when you are architecting your workloads, all right, what you will definitely see is that you will see a trade-off between your pillars. That is what we discussed, the six pillars that we just discussed, and that will be based upon your business context that is there. So your business decisions will be driven by your the engineering priorities that you will take into consideration as a part of what architecting your cloud solutions that are there. So you will have to say optim you will have to say optimize to improve what the sustainability factor that you're looking into. Maybe probably you will consider factors by which you can reduce the cost, and so on and so on. So in any particular scenario, okay, you take into all these aspects, whether it's about securing, whether it's about operational excellence, these all components can be taken into consideration as a part of what implementing a system being deployed on the AWS cloud. Now, having understood that, all right, so having understood the key terminologies, what did we just discuss? We discussed about what AWS well-architected framework represents, all right. We try to give a definition. We explored what are those certain practices and guidelines that can be taken into account. We found that it not only proposes certain guidelines, rather, it also identifies certain remediations that can be taken into account, which are cornered or which have been surrounded by the six pillars, which involves operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability, which all these factors really contribute towards ensuring that you have a very well thorough framework which has been architected to deliver the kind of business goal for a particular customer who is going to be using AWS. Having understood that, we also saw certain key terminologies which will go very well in terms of what the organization as well as with respect to the engineering aspect of implementing, architecting your cloud solutions that are going to be deployed on AWS. So we saw certain key terminologies. Now, what we need to address on the next level is that we need to take it into understanding what are the certain design principles, because what we are trying to understand and what we are trying to convey here is that we are trying to understand about how we can architect a very well framed, a very well designed cloud solution, right? So we need to understand certain design principles, all right, which will be taken into consideration, which can act as say a specific say a stop mark, all right, or you will understand that very specifically, which can highlight or which can act. You ensure that you take these aspects into consideration as and when you are implementing a good design to facilitate the kind of specific system to be deployed on the cloud for that matter. So the certain principles as stated here states what you need to stop what guessing your capacity needs. All right. So one of the poorest decisions that can be taken is that with respect to your capacity. All right. Whenever you're deploying your workload. All right. You cannot end up end up having your resources going idle. All right. Or maybe you cannot have your say performance being implicated, or you need to deal with what the performance implications that are there for your limited capacity that is there. So with your cloud as with your cloud, whether the resources gonna go idle or they are gonna be, say, you are out of resources for that matter, you run out of resources very specifically, that can be addressed here. And with cloud computing, what you're trying to do is that you are uh, you will use as much as little as you need, and it offers you ways via which you will be able to scale up and scale down automatically. So scalability, the factor of scalability or the principle or this capability of scalability comes into picture to address the scaling requirements or the dynamic requirements that needs to be addressed. So dynamically, depending upon your capacity and the requirements that are there with respect to your infrastructure, with respect to your, say, the specific, the kind of assets that needs to be provisioned specifically, resources that are supposed to be made available, and stories that might be required. Scaling is something that comes into picture. So you should not be guessing your capacity. You can dynamically do that with your AWS for that matter. Number two is that you will be able to test your systems for that matter. So in the cloud, okay, you can create production scale test environment that is there, which will be on demand. You can complete your testing, and then what you can do is that you can decommission those resources for that matter. So at the end, you will only pay for the test environment which you would have consumed for that matter, which are whenever it is running, and then you can simulate the live environment for the whatever the cost of the testing for the premises that you're looking into. So because testing is very important, so you end up paying hugely for that matter. So you will definitely AWS on the cloud, right, provides you what a way to facilitate testing for your prediction to be happening at the production scale for that matter. Number three is that automation. Of course, you see that coming up. You see a lot of automated tools that are there. So see, whenever we are trying to implement or whenever we are trying to introduce the concept of automation, what you're trying to permit is that you create and replicate your workloads at a very, very low cost. All right. And then you also avoid the expenses that would have incurred in terms of the manual effort that would have gone into, right? So the moment you introduce, say, automation, all right, that will be a very, very, say, a selling point with respect to the customers who are looking into having a cost-effective solutions. So automation can act very well in terms of what avoiding the expenses, say, decreasing the cost for certain aspects and the efforts that are going to be deployed for that matter. So with automation, what you can do is you can track the changes for your systems. All right. You can monitor the insights. You can check the, say, the impact. You can audit and log the informations automatically. Definitely, that's very much possible. So consider that as and when you are implementing a particular, say, uh, implementing a particular system to be deployed on the AWS cloud, AWS ensures that there are certain automation tools that can be taken and ensuring and achieving the kind of benefits that's there to for that matter. Number four is that you need to consider what the evolutionary architectures that you're looking into. So when I say evolutionary architecture, what would have happened is that, say, traditionally, okay, or some years back, what would have happened is that you would have implemented a particular static or a one-time event, maybe some kind of say, different versions of it of a system being managed in its lifetime. So what happens is that you would have seen that there is always a digital transformation that is happening. All right, there is a change, upward trend that comes up in terms of evolving technologies being adopted into your business scenarios to deliver the kind of goals that we are looking into. So what happens is that probably what you would have say consumed or what you would have say conceived some years back, okay, might be an hindrance when it comes to the change that a system might be looking out into. So in cloud, especially in the AWS cloud, what we are trying to do here is that we have this capability to automate and test on demand. All right, where you ensure that with that you will lower the risk of impact from your design changes that might happen. So for example, whenever a particular solution, say, would have achieved an integration of a particular service, and you want AI capabilities being made available for that. And your applications should be able to say integrate those aspects very specifically in an hassle-free manner. So that's very much possible in an automated manner, integrating with the services that are there and that your say AWS has to offer, can offer for that matter. So your systems, your AWS, your systems in the cloud, uh, AWS cloud are permitted to evolve over time for that matter. Okay, so that your businesses, your customers can take advantage of the innovations, the services, and the trending patterns and the practices that do exist when it comes to be up to date on the term for that matter being. And then what we have on that part is that very specifically is that you can try what architectures using data. Yes, that's very important nowadays to be discussed about, right? See, in the cloud, in AWS cloud very specifically, you will be able to collect the data of your architectural choices, all right? And you will be able to understand those data that can really affect the behavior of your workload also. Because of course, applications are generating telemetry data coming up, your devices are generating data for that matter. And what organizations need is that they need these data that can drive their businesses for that matter, all right? So companies and organizations are looking at ways via which they can make fact-based decisions so that they can improve those workloads. So as and when telemetry data, application data has been captured, your cloud infrastructure, which is a code, okay, uses that data to inform the architectural choices and the improvements that can be made over a period of time. All right. So it's not only for the business decisions, it's also to evolve, it's also to improve on the architectural front. That data can be taken into consideration, which your AWS cloud is very much capable of. So you can monitor, you can log the informations with respect to your applications, your telemetry data. You can audit that very specifically and then enhance your architecture to deliver the kind of goals that you're looking into. Finally, you have another the next principle that needs to be taken into consideration is that where it says that the game days you need to improve through your game days, where what we are trying to say here is that we are trying to simulate certain events for that matter. So with this we are trying to say that you will have to test how your architecture, your processes will be performing, okay, regularly to simulate events in the production that is there. So in case if you want to understand where improvements can be made and you can help your organization, you can improve the enhance the organization uh, experiences that you're looking into, okay, in dealing with the specific events being simulated. Definitely that's very much possible by simulating those events in the production scenarios that are there. So definitely you will consider these many principle design aspects or design principles taken into account as a part of as and when you are designing and creating your specific solutions to be deployed on the AWS cloud. Now, let's quickly just get to the global infrastructure, these aspects that are there, all right? And then probably we go for a quick break and then come back and continue with Amazon S3 for that matter. Now, see, uh, for any service, all right, um, for any infrastructure or a particular service to be reaping the benefits for that matter, it's very important that you need to ensure that okay, you make your services being available. It runs unhindered for that matter, and that's where your AWS global infrastructure comes into picture. All right, AWS global infrastructure comes into picture. So your AWS cloud infrastructure, as you can see here, has been stated here. It's built around AWS regions and availability zones that are there. All right. So with your AWS regions, what you're trying to say is that it's a physical location. Okay, it's a physical location, maybe somewhere in say Los Angeles, or say somewhere in Asia Pacific, or somewhere in Europe. Okay, it's a physical location in a particular demographic location, where within that you will have what multiple availability zones that are there. I repeat that point once again. Your AWS region is a physical location in anywhere in the world where it will have what that particular location will have what multiple availability zones that are there. And what's going to be happening here is that your availability zones will consist of what this one or more discrete data centers from where your services are going to be hosted, where your services are going to be deployed up. All right. And from these availability zones or these discrete data centers that are there, all right, they will have what redundant power, all right. The data centers are offered with what redundant power, the networking that is required for your services to be running, the connectivity tools that are there, all right, and different facilities that are there for whether it's about say to operating your databases, making it more available, fault tolerant, and scalable as and when that is required with respect to a scenario. So of course, it's globally distributed across the different continents, okay, different demographic locations, and you have data centers which are powered and which are fully functional and which are fully capable in terms of achieving the kind of goals that you're looking into as a part of provisioning your infrastructural requirements for hosting your services on the cloud. So these you can see certain templates that have been placed here. You can see that as of now, these are the updated values and the numbers that you can see that as of now there are 31 launched regions. All right, integrated with your availability zones, and there are 99 availability zones across the globe. All right, and it has what 400 plus edge locations. All right, 450 plus points of presence across the globe that you're trying to say, that's what I'm trying to say. And it has what you can see different values, 245 countries, and the territories are being say covered. You can see how well connected these aspects are. All right, so when you look at this very specific infrastructural, say, implementation of AWS being distributed globally, you will see that AWS ensures that this infrastructure is the most secure, extensive, reliable cloud platforms in terms of the offerings of the services, featured services that are there, and which from the different data centers that are distributed globally. So whether you need to deploy your application workloads across the globe in a single click, or you want to build and deploy your application specifics closer to your end users, all right, you will be definitely able to do that with minimum latency, all right, with minimum latency. And for that, your AWS will provide you the cloud infrastructure to where and when you need to deploy it for that matter. So with many customers might be accessing your applications, right? Different partners that are there globally. What AWS has is that it has the largest and the most dynamic ecosystem to be offered in terms of implementing and deploying your cloud solutions and systems that are there. So irrespective of the size of the organization or the industry that you're working with, the enterprises, whether the sector that's there, you will see that AWS uses or AWS is fully potential in terms of implementing and say achieving the kind of goals, making your services available globally and accessible and in a reliant and in a safe and a secure manner. To do that very specifically, all right, there are certain as a part of this AWS global infrastructure, all right, you will see that okay, there are certain benefits that comes into picture for that matter. Number one is the security. That's very much very much understood for that matter. But let me put that here. Okay. See, one of the core infrastructure, or the core aspect that needs to be considered is that this how secure your particular how security requirements of your systems is being taken into account as and when you're deploying into cloud. So, say, with respect to the cloud for that matter, all right, to meet the demands that are their requirements, security requirements in the world, all right, your cloud infrastructure of your AWS ensures highest confidentiality, integrity, and of course, making it what available for that matter. So security is very much important. All right, you will see data transiting from services to services, application to applications, and so on in the global network that you are going to be interconnecting across different data centers that are there. Okay, and the regions that you're going to be consuming. So with AWS, you will be able to build the most secure global infrastructure. All right, and you know your who can on what level of the control of the data happens. All right, you will be able to encrypt the data very specifically. Okay, you can manage the retentions that are there, specifically ensuring that you have what secured facilities in terms of the resources that are going to be consumed. Secondly, availability. All right, now, availability, as I said, we just discussed, right, with the different regions and the availability zones that are there. All right. So what happens is that you will be able to, with different ways, you will distribute it across different regions. All right. You can use a certain API endpoints. All right. You can use API endpoints that are there, and then you can operate securely for what the global control functions that you're looking into for your customers to access the regions or whatever services that you're trying to try to connect it for that matter. So network availability, okay, highest network availability is something that we are looking into provision as a part of what making our services available on this platform for that matter. So every region is what individually isolated, and it comprises of a number of what multiple availability zones that are there. So definitely you will be able to say making your services more available. You will definitely consider those factors very specifically, making API calls or say safe and secure access management tools and services being made available, making your services to be consumed for your applications for that matter. Number three is the performance. All right, number three is the performance aspect. So the benefit with respect to your global infrastructure is that yes, you will look into ways via which you will ensure low latency. All right, you ensure low packet loss, and then you will also ensure what high overall the quality of network when it is taken into account. So definitely your end users can stay connected with minimum latencies, and then you can use AWS as a platform to deliver the kind of services that you're looking into with the utmost performance that is there. Number four is the scalability. Yes, we just discussed that your AWS global infrastructure, okay, is completely extremely flexible. All right, and you can take advantage of the concept very specifically in terms of what scalability of the cloud that is there. So you need not have to say over provision a particular say certain resources to meet the business requirements that are there. What you just need to do is that you just need to provision what actually that you need, and instantly you can automate this process of what scaling up or scaling down depending upon the needs of the business that is there. As a result, with the scalability spread across different globally distributed services that are there, you will be able to what reduce the cost. You can improve the customer's ability to meet the kind of user requirements that you're looking into, and then companies can definitely what sign up, say if needed, spin up the resources as and when it's needed, depending upon different servers that might be required, resources that are supposed to be provisioned, infrastructure that is to be consumed. So you can scale based upon the demand. On demand scalability is something which is very much possible with your AWS. Number last but not the least, what we have is the flexibility and the global footprint. So with flexibility, what we are trying to say is that you will be able to choose how uh, where you want to run your workloads. All right, and you are maybe you might be using the same network, same control plane, but definitely with the same APIs and same frameworks and services, definitely you have that flexibility to choose where you want to run it for that matter for your applications based upon any particular AWS region. All right, for your region or your availability zones that you choose to work with. So if you need to run your applications with say a single digit millisecond latency to a mobile device, and end users can choose what AWS local zones or AWS wavelength, okay, different services that are there. Or say if you would like to run your applications on premises, you can choose a service like what AWS Outpost. So complete flexibility depending upon your demand, the requirement is being made available as a part of this global infrastructure that AWS has to offer for its say esteemed customers that are going to be using into. And finally, the global footprint, we just discussed that, right? Of any provider for that matter. Okay, you will see that the global footprint is increasing in a significant rate. So whenever you're deploying your applications and workloads to your cloud, you have the flexibility in what selecting the technology, the infrastructure, which is very much close to your what the kind of target of your users that you're looking into. And you can very specifically what you will be the AWS cloud will be able to deliver the best support for what the set of applications and ensuring highest throughput and the low latency requirements that you're looking into. So globally, yes, with the infrastructure regions, all right, you can make your services being available, all right, you can be choosing the right technology with your utmost support that's possible. It's very much achievable and very much being implemented with respect to your AWS global infrastructure. That is your global footprint. All right, so this is what we had in basically understanding what a well architected framework is. All right, what did we just let me reiterate what we discussed, and then we go for a quick break and come back and continue with Amazon S3. So we defined what is a well architected framework. We saw the pillars of AWS well architected framework. We spoke about the key terminologies which needs to be taken into consideration from an organizational point of view and from an engineering point of view in terms of architecting cloud solutions on AWS. We saw certain design principles which very well gels, very well say makes a handshake with respect to the pillars that we discussed a bit ago, which can contribute towards creating efficient and well architected specific cloud solutions on the AWS platform. And then we saw about the AWS global infrastructure. We spoke about AWS regions. We spoke about AWS availability zones, the kind of services, kind of features that it brings into. All right, the way it is able to scale, making it globally distributed. We saw its benefits in terms of what the way how you can secure your applications, the availability of the services, the request to call for services making use of APIs, the advanced and the enhanced performances, the scalability, the dynamic scalability factor, the flexibility that comes into where you can choose when and where you want to deploy your applications, and finally, the global foothold in terms of your services being scattered in a distributed manner, making it to be consumed for your applications in a frequent manner, ensuring with the utmost trust for the customers that is there. All right. So with this, we go for a quick break and come back. And once we come back, we definitely get into Amazon S3. All right. We'll try to understand how we can store Amazon, say our objects within Amazon S3. We'll try to understand certain concepts with respect to that. Then we will discuss about S3 Glacier, and then we will also have certain aspects to be discussed as a part of it and have a quick walkthrough on the hands-on lab that is there. All right, so see you back in some minutes. Yeah.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's continue from where we left off as we discuss about uh, the fundamentals of architecting on AWS. So before we had been for the break, we defined what well-architected framework was. We spoke about certain design principles. We spoke about certain pillars. We also spoke about certain, say, benefits when it comes to the global infrastructure that AWS has to offer for that matter. Now we come towards this part, okay, as part of our agenda, as I promised earlier. Let's quickly get into understanding Amazon S3. All right. So the first part will deal with Amazon S3, and in the second part we go towards Amazon Glacier S3 for that matter. So let me walk you through Amazon S3, and this will be very interesting in the sense that this will help us understand as a part of what we are going to be deploying or having a walkthrough of the lab that we are going to be working about. All right. So let's get started with Amazon S3. So Amazon S3 stands for there are three S involved in that, which stands for Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is one of the basic storage services, all right, which is there on the AWS Cloud, which is an object storage service that you have, all right, where your Amazon S3 as a service will offer you highest scalability, data availability, security, and performance when it comes to industrial applications that you're looking into. So, whatever the size of your customers or the organization that you're going to be, or the industry that you're going to be working with, Amazon S3 can be used to store and protect any amount of data that you're looking into. All right, for any different kind of range of what uh, scenarios or use cases that you're looking into. So as you can see that it will provide you with certain features via which you will be able to optimize and organize and configure your storage services that are there, all right, to your data so that you will be able to meet the specific requirements that are there with respect to your businesses, with respect to your organization, with respect to your compliances that are there. So of course, your S3 in its totality will be able to provide you with ways via which you will be able to do this. And as I told you, it is your S3, Amazon S3 as a storage service is fully capable of a wide variety or a range of use cases to be deployed for that matter. So in case if you're looking to store your data, all right, and protect your data, manage your data with respect to, say, whether it's your static websites, your data lakes, all right, your mobile applications, your backup and restore, if you want to perform backup and restore, if you want to perform or say archiving your data that is there for that matter, uh, or if you want to manage your enterprise applications, or probably say you want to work with your say IoT devices, or maybe say a big data analytical solutions that you're trying to build in. Definitely, Amazon S3 is something which is very much capable of. So you can use Amazon S3 to store and protect any amount of data of any of these kind of use cases that you are looking to build around to achieve the kind of goal for that matter, because Amazon S3 is capable in that manner. Now let's quickly understand what are the features of S3, all right, and we will try to understand what are the components or what are the factors for what are the key aspects that needs to be discussed as a part of Amazon S3. All right, so the features of S3, the first one says the storage classes. So as I told you, as we just saw a bit ago, we saw the different use cases in which your, say, particularly your Amazon S3 can be used, whether it's for your data lakes, whether it's your enterprise application, or even for your static websites, which is a part of today's hands-on lab that we would be discussing. Uh, See, your S3 offers a range of storage classes, all right, which is defined for different use cases that are there. Okay, you have different, say, based upon your different use cases, you can use the storage classes that are available with S3 for that matter. For example, you want to have S3 standard, wherever you want to have a frequent access of data and you want to save cost. S3 standard is one of the class of data that can be as a class of storage that can be taken into consideration. You have say S3 one zone IA, or you have S3 glacier instant retrieval, so on and so on. So you will see different say versions of your storage classes. Of course, the cost would definitely will vary. All right. With the kind of the pattern in which the data is going to be accessed, you will be definitely able to provision these storage classes that are available for any different kind of use cases that you're looking into with your Amazon S3 for that matter. So you can store the data with your with changing or unknown access patterns that are there. All right. And then what you can do is that you can optimize your storage cost by automatically moving your data between what the access tiers that are going to be there whenever your pattern of your access is going to be changed for that matter. So there are different say access tiers that can be included for that matter, whether it's based upon the frequency of access or say for how this how in a synchronous or in an asynchronous fashion it's going to be the data is going to be accessed. Definitely you have storage classes to be taken, storage classes that can take care of. Then you have the storage management, which is a feature of Amazon S3. So see, your storage management feature of your Amazon S3 offers you ways via which you will be able to manage the cost. All right. You will be able to regulate your requirements. All right. You will be able to reduce the latency that you're looking into. Okay. The latency in which at which certain resources and services is to be accessed. Okay. And you can save multiple distinct copies of your data as a part for your what compliant requirements that are there. So as a part of storage features, these aspects are being handled. And to do this very specifically, your S3, you can manage your the life cycle of your S3 with storage management. All right. You can lock your objects that are going to be placed in your S3. That's very much possible as a part of the management that you're looking into. The replication that I just recommended, just I stated, the batch operations that you want to perform, right? Where you want to manage billions of millions of what say objects at a scale. Single S3 API request is very much possible. So you can totally manage that, right? The storage with respect to your resources and the services is very much possible with your Amazon S3 for that matter. Then what you have is the access management and security that's there. All right, the access management and security. So what your access management and security has to offer is that it will offer you with features via which you will be able to audit, okay, and you will be able to manage access to your buckets. Okay, now we will understand what it is, or buckets as we discuss later. So you will see that your objects or whatever the data that you're going to be placing in your Amazon S3 is that it gets it places them in certain buckets that are there. So you will have objects and buckets that will be created. So with respect to your S3, the buckets and your say objects are going to be very much private. So of course you can regulate, you can formulate ACL, that is access control. You can specify the a control list can be specified. You can specify the bucket policies, access points. All right, the identity and the access management that is required. We will see that as we are doing in the lab. Also, you will see definitely will be able to see that how your API access can be taken into consideration. Do you want to make your buckets, your objects to be publicly available? And so on and so on. You can even ensure the ownership of your particular objects that are going to be placed in your S3. All this is very much possible with your Amazon S3 as a part of implementing its access management and security that is there. Then data processing, okay, your Amazon S3 is possible of what it allows you, it has a feature via which you will be able to transform the data, all right, and trigger workflows to automate a variety of other processing activities at the scale that is there. So if there are services like say Lambda, event not notification that is there. So you can trigger certain events as a part of what certain processing activities that are happening at a certain scale. You're making use of what Amazon S3, which has the data processing capability. And of course, as with respect to, as I told you, right, it not only what provides you with services, it provides you with ways via which you will be able to what improve and enhance the architecture of the implemented components that are there. So your Amazon S3 provides you uh, I'm sorry, it provides you logging and monitoring tools that are there. Okay, so via which you will be able to monitor, all right, and you can control how your Amazon S3 resources are being used. Just a second. All right, so you can control how your Amazon S3 resources are being used. All right, so there are certain monitoring tools that are there. Okay, you can automate your monitoring that is there with your CloudWatch. There are services like CloudWatch, CloudTrail, all right, which can be taken into account, which can be used for automated monitoring that is there. And of course, there are some manual, say, monitoring tools that are there, but definitely there are some interesting services that Amazon has to offer in terms of what monitoring your specific resources, health of your resources, configuring your alerts, and so on and so on. That's very much possible. And then you also have this feature of what capturing the analytics and the insights that are there. So your S3 offers you with features via which you can gain visibility into your storage usage that is there. Okay, via which you will be able to empower, which will empower you to better understand, analyze and optimize and take appropriate actions for your storage in the depending upon the scale at which it's been implemented. All right. So there are different services that can be in that your Amazon S3 can be integrated or say that can work together in terms of capturing the analytics with respect to the services that can be consumed at a scale that is there, like you have something called as Amazon S3 storage lens coming into picture. All right, you have storage class analysis that can be done. You can generate inventory reports. It's very much possible with your Amazon S3. And then you also, it provides you, your S3 offers you with what storage consistency. That's very important, right? Because it's very important to have a consistent way of storing your data after every read after write consistency after actions that are going to be taken into consideration. So what happens is that whenever you are trying to say request for objects to be read in Amazon S3 bucket, all right, in a particular AWS region, all right, it ensures that there is a consistency with respect to the operations that are going to be performed on the particular object that you're trying to read for that matter. All right, so these are the certain features, all right, and you will see that as I discuss this, all right, there are n number of services. We discussed about CloudTrail, right? We spoke about Amazon S3 storage lens that is there. We spoke about CloudWatch. We spoke about Lambda. There is something called as Amazon SNS, all right, which can be used very specifically for data processing whenever you want to say automate those processes very specifically. You want to trigger workflows with SNS, or you can use SQS, all right, simple queue service, or Lambda for that matter. Different service integration is possible, making it fully capable, addressing the requirements of a potential customer in terms of achieving the kind of goal that's looking into. Now let's see how your Amazon S3 works. Okay, these are the features. These can be taken into account as a part of implementing your, say, the storage classes that are there with respect to your Amazon S3. Now let's see how your Amazon S3 works. All right, and we will see that being demonstrated as a part of the lab as we discuss further around there. So with your Amazon S3, all right, that is uh, the simple storage service that Amazon has to offer on the AWS. Okay, whenever you are going to be storing your data, all right, you will store your data as objects. Now, when I demonstrate this on the lab, you will be definitely able to see that. So what's going to be happening here is that you will have objects, okay, where the objects are going to be representing your data, and these objects are going to be placed within buckets that are there. Okay, that's what we discussed a bit ago. And you will be able to provide what access control management tools that are there. You will be you can provide access controls. You can leverage how it's been accessed. You can monitor those buckets being accessed to be distributed, so on and so on. So within an Amazon S3 bucket, an object is nothing but a particularly a file. All right. And that object is nothing but it decides or it describes or it defines the kind of the file or the data that is available or that's being going to be stored for that matter. All right. So your metadata, your information very specifically, all right, is going to be with respect to for the data file that is there is available with the object which gets placed within the bucket of an Amazon S3. Okay. And what happens is that for an Amazon S3, your bucket is a tool, or you will see that your Amazon S3 will contain different, your buckets will contain what different objects that are there. So your bucket acts as like that of a container for your objects where the files are going to be recorded or persisted for that manner way. All right. So whenever we will see this being done, as I discussed as a part of the process of demonstrating the lab, you will see that whenever you want to create or whenever you want to store your data in your Amazon S3, your starting point will be by creating a particular bucket with respect to your Amazon account that you're looking into. All right. So with your valid, say Amazon account that is there. All right. So you will create a bucket. All right. And your bucket will have a unique identifying name, and that needs to be provisioned on a particular AWS region that is there. All right. And then, and into these buckets is where you're going to be placing your objects. So you will be able to upload your data to the bucket as what objects in your Amazon S3 that is there. So in your Amazon S3, all right, within your within the buckets that are there, you will place these objects and the objects will contain the data that's going to be represented for that matter. All right. So what happens is that every object, all right, every object will have a particular key name. All right. There will be a key name and there will be a unique identifier for your object within the bucket that is there. We will just discuss that later. I will just showcase that later once we do that. So you will have a name, your bucket will have a name, your object will have a name, and your every object will have a unique identifier when it comes to be placed on the particular bucket of an Amazon S3. Number three, the third step is that once you have uploaded your data to your bucket, okay, as objects for that matter in your Amazon S3, what you will do is that you will have to configure your bucket. All right. Now that's very important. If you remember, I did say that you can provide, you can support, you can say configure certain mechanisms that suits very specific to your use cases that are there. All right. For example, if you want to have versioning so that you keep a multiple, you want to have multiple versions of your objects in the same bucket, all right, you can do that. So for example, if you want to restore your objects as and when, say if it's been accidentally been deleted or maybe overwritten, you can definitely do that for that matter. So with explicit access permissions, you will be able to what access or you can define explicit access permissions that can be taken into account as a part of what accessing your objects and buckets and objects that contains the data for that matter being. All right. So you can use certain bucket policies. All right. You can have policies for your buckets. You can have very specifically, you can use AWS identity access management policies taken into consideration. You can apply ACLs, that is access control list. All right. You can use S3 access points to manage your access and so on and so on. So definitely it's very much possible. You can formulate, you can leverage the control at hierarchical level in terms of what the policies that can be taken into consideration for working with your data for that matter. Now, as what we discussed with your well-architected framework. Now let's also try to understand the key concepts with respect to Amazon S3. Okay, the key terms or the key terminologies that are there. Let me try to define that and making it more simpler, more easier in terms of understanding where to take it further on that matter. So with Amazon S3, the first aspect that we just discussed a bit ago is the buckets, right? So your bucket is nothing but, let me write that down here. Mm, your bucket is nothing but it's a container of objects. Your bucket is going to act as a container for your objects where which is going to be used to store data in your Amazon S3 for that matter. So you can store any number of objects in a bucket, all right, and you can have up to 100 buckets in a particular account. Now that's a very valid point that needs to be taken into consideration. So in a particular account, you can have what 100 buckets in your account for that matter. So whenever, let's say, you can, of course, whenever you want to have an increase in terms of the buckets to be assigned a provision, definitely you can make a request for the service quota to be done for that, leveraging and increasing the capacity of buckets to be provisioned. All right. Uh, and what happens is that within your buckets, every object is going to be contained in a particular bucket. All right. So whenever you create a bucket, as we saw earlier, you will have a bucket name. You will have an AWS region where the bucket will reside, right? After you create a bucket, you cannot change the name of the bucket or its region. That's very important. That needs to be taken into consideration. All right. So your bucket should follow certain naming rules and conventions that are there. All right. And you can also configure versions for your buckets that are there, or you can also apply certain storage management features that are there to be for that matter be. So understand that your buckets will act at the topmost level as a part of your namespace that is there. All right, it's going to be at the highest for that matter. So you will be able to, you can identify the accounts that will be responsible for storage and data transfer charges that are going to be taken into consideration. With buckets, you can do that. All right, as I told you, you can form or you can apply what ACLs, IAMs that are there, access points that are there to manage access to your buckets and the resources that are going to be placed within your buckets. You can do that. And then you can also generate a unit of aggregation for the usage being done on the buckets being done that can be taken into consideration as a part of logging and auditing informations to be reported as making use of what buckets that's there for that matter. Then what we have is what uh, objects. All right. I told you what this is the very fundamental aspect to your values that are going to be stored in your Amazon S3. So objects are fundamental entities, all right, which are going to be stored in Amazon, and your objects consist of object data. There are two aspects. One is the data part. The second is the metadata part. Okay, so your metadata is nothing but the set of the name, value pairs that you have. Okay, that will describe the object that is there for that matter being. So object is what object will be placed within a bucket, right? And object is going to be uniquely identified within a bucket by a, a key or a particular name, and it will have a version ID for that matter. Next, what we have is the keys that are there, or what we call it as the object keys, which is used to uniquely identify a particular object in a uh, bucket for that matter. So every object in a bucket has an exactly one key, and the combination of a bucket, object key, and the version ID uniquely identifies each object for that matter. All right. So you can use this very specifically whenever you want to access or whenever you want to, okay, make it available with respect to the kind of services that are going to be consumed. These keys can be taken into consideration for that matter. Then you have S3 versions. Now we spoke a bit ago about the S3 storage classes a bit ago, right? So you can use S3 versions also, okay, in case if you want to have multiple variants of your object in the same bucket to be made available. All right. So with S3 versioning, what you're trying to do is that you are trying to preserve, you're trying to retrieve, you're trying to restore every version of every object stored in your bucket that is there. So in case if you want to have a recovery from an unintended user action or application failures, you can use these versions very specifically with as with the help of what the versions that are being assigned. Then you have what the versions ID, all right, the version ID that is there. So whenever you say enable S3 versioning in a particular bucket, you will see that Amazon S3, Amazon will be responsible for generating a unique version ID for your object that gets added to your bucket that is there. So objects that already existed in the bucket at the time that you enable versioning will have what a version ID of null, and the moment you modify this, it gets assigned very specific to that. So you can use version IDs also to uniquely what with respect to each object that gets added to your particular object of the uh, bucket where you're going to be placing your data that is going to be there. Then you have bucket policies. Now we discussed a bit on this a bit ago, but just let me reiterate. So your bucket policies are ways via which you ensure, say, policies where you will be able to use or you will be able to grant access permissions to your bucket. All right. And of course, the objects that are going to be placed in it. So you can use AWS identity and access management policies for that matter. So what happens is that whenever you say formulate or whenever you associate a policy, only the bucket owner can associate a policy with a particular bucket for that matter. So the permissions attached to a bucket will apply to all the objects. Understand that your buckets will consist of what objects that are there. So the moment you apply certain policies on your buckets very specifically, you will see that by default, it gets applied to all the objects that are owned by the bucket owner that are there. All right. So you can formulate policies that are there, and your buckets can have say a size of what 20 KB. Bucket policies can have a size of what 20 KB in its size for that matter being. So you can definitely, we will see that later on, the policy that we will be where we will be working about a certain policy that's been taken into consideration as making use of a JSON based access policy language to access that. Then what we have is S3 access points. All right, we have S3 access points. So your S3 access points are nothing but your named network endpoints that are. All right. Your S3 access points are nothing but your named network endpoints that are there, where you will have what dedicated access policies via which you will be able to describe how data can be accessed using that endpoint. I repeat that point. Your S3 access points act as network endpoints that will that will permit you to access the particular data using that endpoint for that matter. So your access endpoints will be attached to your access endpoints are going to be getting attached to your particular buckets that are there. All right, you will have access endpoints being attached to your buckets and which can be used to perform S3 object operations that are whichever you want to perform. For example, you want to get a particular object or you want to place a particular object. Definitely you will use this what access endpoints attached to your buckets, because that will place and that will let you work upon the objects that are residing for that matter. So your access point manages the data access at scale for your shared data assets data sets that are there in your Amazon S3. So they will be used for what the data access that needs to be managed for the values that are there or for the residing data in the scale for that matter. And then you also have what ACLs, we just spoke about that, access control list. So what your access control list is trying to say is that it is something via which you will be able to grant, read, and write permissions for specific authorized users or for the specific individual buckets and the objects that are there. So each bucket and each object has what an ACL attached to it, okay, as a sub resource for that matter. So your ACL defines which AWS accounts or groups can be granted with access and the type of access that they can be granted with. So it's a way of what access control mechanism that predates what is there with your IAM, that is your identity access management for that matter being, which can be taken into account as a part of your Amazon S3 buckets for to be leveraged upon. And finally, you have what regions, all right, with associated with your S3, you will see the regions. Now we spoke a bit about regions are nothing but your AWS locations that are there, okay, where your S3 is going to store the buckets that you're going to be creating. So you probably whenever you're provisioning a service and you want to store them, store your data into those AWS buckets, all right, you will choose a region to optimize the latency that you're looking into, minimize the cost, or even whatever the regulatory requirements that you're looking into for that matter being. So definitely, with associated with a bucket, you will specify a region where you want to provision it, making the services to be persisted on that service for that matter. So these are the few key concepts of what Amazon S3. All right, we saw what is Amazon S3. We saw the features of S3. We saw how Amazon S3 works. We saw the concepts of S3. Now let's quickly get into understanding another, say, a service, all right, which is Amazon S3 Glacier. All right, Amazon S3 Glacier. So your Amazon S3 Glacier is a secure, durable service for archiving your low cost data. So that's the difference as compared to your S3 for that matter. Okay. So in your Glacier, whenever you are trying to store a low cost data, which needs to be archived and you want it to be backed up for a long term, definitely your S3 Glacier is one of the recommended one. So what would have happened in with your S3 Glacier, okay, with S3 Glacier is that you can store your data in a cost effective manner for maybe for some months, for years, or even for decades. So that's a way of how certain tiers are going to be provided with, right? So you know that, hey, my data is not going to be accessed in a frequent manner, all right? Or maybe in a year, or say once in 2 years, or whatever. You know that your application requirement for the data is going to be very infrequent, and that can take up a lot of time, all right? In those cases, you can store your S3. So you do not want to store them in a very high premium tier storage service and you end up paying a lot, right? So you can place them into a particular low cost data services that are there, storage services that are there, and reap the benefits according to that. Now, having said that, okay, uh, your S3 Glacier, all right, as compared to your Amazon S3, it will help you to offload what the administrative burdens that are there when it comes to what operating and scaling what storage to your AWS. So you do not have to worry about what the capacity planning, all right, you need not have to worry about capacity planning or the hardware provisioning that would be required in terms of executing or deploying those resources, the data replication requirements, or in case if there is a hardware failure, that is the failure detection or the kind of recovery that needs to be done, or it might be say the kind of time that would require in terms of say migrating heavy hardwares that are there. So that's not something that you need to be worried about because your S3 Glacier can fully manage this very specifically in that manner. So your Amazon S3, of course, uh, your Amazon S3 provides what three S3 Glacier archive storage classes that are there. All right, there are different storage classes that are going to be provided, and each will have what different access pattern, will have a storage duration depending upon a particular use case that can be taken into consideration. So you need not have a burden with the fact that hey, I need to operate all these aspects with respect to the scalable solution that I'm looking into in terms of managing my low cost data. Your Amazon Glacier is very well capable of doing that for that matter being. So there are few say certain say storage classes that you need to understand, all right, as a part of your Amazon S3 Glacier. Number one is the instant retrieval. All right. Number one is the instant retrieval that you're looking into. So say whenever you want to archive your data, all right, and the data is going to be accessed very rarely and you need just few minutes of latency in terms of retrieving that, you can go with the term itself is explanatory, instant retrieval. All right. S3 Glacier instant retrieval. Now, you also have what S3 Glacier flexible retrieval coming into picture. So say, for example, you want to archive the portions of your data which will be needed to be retrieved in certain minutes. All right, so you can do that by placing them into what the flexible retrieval S3 Glacier storage class that is there. So you can access that in as little as say 1 to 5 minutes by making use of what expedited retrieval that is there, or you can also use what free bulk retrievals that are there which can take up to 5 to 12 hours for that matter. Now if you are looking for archiving data that say that's going to be say accessed very rarely. All right, so you can go with what S3 Glacier deep archive. All right, so it might take so retrieving data from that might say take up to what 12 hours. So when I say this, understand that the cost also will differ. All right, you there will be a variability when it comes to the cost factor as and when you are trying to choose a particular storage class associated with your S3 Glacier storage classes you are looking at. You have similar tiers in even in the Azure also that does this very specifically. All right. So you will see that in cloud, yes, depending upon specific use cases, you can choose these kind of storage classes that very well aligns towards the requirement that you are looking into. Now, now let's quickly try to understand the difference, okay, the very much difference between your Amazon S3, all right, and your Amazon Glacier S3. Okay, so in terms of purpose, all right, your S3, as you would have seen that, okay, it's for what? High cost data that you're going to be using it to. So when you know that, hey, the frequency of access of my data is going to be so high, all right, that's when you go for Amazon S3. But when you know that, hey, my data is going to be idle, going to be stored for a long period of time, and it doesn't need to be accessed in a frequent manner, your S3 Glacier and its associated storage classes can be taken into account in terms of optimizing the cost for that matter. And then the second factor that might where you need to consider is the access speeds. So with S3, you will be able to access your data in just few milliseconds for that matter. Whereas in your Glacier or that S3 Glacier, it will provide you with what slower access to data that you're looking into. It might be some hours or it might be even for days for that matter. So whenever you're looking for an instant, quick, rapid response for your application in terms of accessing the data stored in the objects of your buckets of your S3, okay, definitely you should go with that matter. Now the cost, yes. Now it looks like more like a premium service as compared to what Amazon S3 Glacier for that matter. So your S3 is very much costly, all right, uh, on the long-term basis for that matter. So your Glacier is more of a low-cost option for the long-term storage that you're looking into. And retrieval fees again can be high. Say as and when you're trying to retrieve data from your Glacier, of course the charges will come into picture as compared to what it would have been residing for that matter. But yes, S3 on the long run is very much costly as compared to S3 Glacier. And of course, that's the premium offerings that it has to offer, right? So of course, the cost will be involved in that. And then fourth is the retrieval, okay? The instant retrieval of data that S3 has to offer and what your say Glacier has to offer. And of course, the durability, all right? So both your whether it's your Amazon S3 or S3 Glacier, you will see highly durable storage being made available. So with S3 Glacier, you will see that, all right, uh, your S3 Glacier will be capable of what? Providing you with 99.999 durability guarantee for that matter. So they are highly durable. So it doesn't mean that say S3 being low, working with low cost data, doesn't that ensure me a durability? No, that's not the case. AWS has taken that into account and it understands very specifically for that matter that it should ensure durability to be guaranteed to its users for that matter. So definitely that's a good choice that can be taken into account as and when you want to work with your low cost data for that matter. All right. Now, having understood this, there are certain factors, okay, that needs to be taken into account as and when you're choosing your AWS region for your infrastructure. We discussed this, okay, just reiterating these aspects to make you understand thoroughly to walk through. Okay, number one is the latency. All right, you want to have minimal delay in terms of the responses generated or responses uh, created for the request being made on a particular application loaded on a particular geographic location. So to do that, ensure that you place your services, applications, resources to a geographically close location so that you reduce the latency. All right, so choose a region so that you ensure the latency is very minimal. All right, and to do that, ensure it's recommended that you choose what a geographically closer location. Number two, okay, whenever you're choosing an AWS region, ensure the compliance. So many different regions have different compliance requirement. What would be in Europe, it would be something different, and say not in US for that matter, North America for that matter. So you choose that with respect to your kind of requirement for the application, for the organization, for the industry that you're looking into. Understand the compliance requirements that are there specific to a particular region. Read those say policies and uh, say prerequisites that are there, and then provision a particular infrastructure as a part of it. Number three is availability. All right, so with availability, what we are trying to say is that, of course, you will see that there are every region will have different availability zones that are there. And as a result, there will be what an effect on the resiliency and the availability of certain application to be made. So whenever you are choosing a particular region, ensure that there are enough sufficient availability zones that are available that meets your requirement or the availability needs that you're looking into. So availability can be considered as a factor as and when you're choosing your AWS region for your particular infrastructure to be deployed. Number four is cost. Of course, the cost will vary, all right, depending upon the region. For some regions, the resources can be cheaper, or maybe the cost of again depends upon the region to region, right? What are the charges and that particular demographic location? So maybe the transfer cost and so on. So consider those implications very specifically when you choose a particular region to work along the lines. Finally, the fifth factor is that the services. So ensure that whatever the services that you're looking to is available in a particular region. Okay, so not all regions support the kind of service AWS services that are available. So ensure that the region that you choose have the support that is required for the services that will be required by your application as a part of implementing it. All right, so I will demonstrate this lab for this particular aspect. Just let me give you a quick walkthrough of what we discussed in the second session. So in the session, we saw that we spoke about Amazon S3, which can be used to store what um, data. Okay, and to do that, Amazon S3 stores data in objects, and these objects are going to be placed in buckets. So your S3 has features, ways via which you will be able to optimize and organize and what configure your require management aspects that are required in terms of accessing your data that's going to be stored. So it's for any kind of say any wide variety of say applications, whether it's your IoT, whether it's your mobile, whether it's for your data lake, whether it's for your big data analytics. Definitely Amazon S3 can be a recommended solution, a service that can be taken into consideration. We saw the features, we saw about the storage classes, the storage management, we saw different services and its integration that Amazon S3 is capable of, via which you will be able to fully capitalize upon, say, deploying cloud solutions to be working in an unhindered manner, giving the utmost, say, experience to the customers who are using it. We spoke about how your S3 works, right? We saw that you always start by creating a bucket, and into your bucket, you create your data gets recorded into objects, and that gets identified by certain IDs that are there. You can formulate policies via which you can manage your buckets with respect to certain access permissions that you're looking into, whether it's with your ACLs, whether it's with your IAMs, whether it's with your access points, and so on and so so on. We saw certain key concepts with respect to Amazon S3. All right, number one is the buckets. Number two is the objects. Then we saw keys. We spoke about S3 versions, different versions. We spoke about version ID for your objects. We spoke about certain policies that can be applied upon your buckets. We spoke about access points, which gets tied to your buckets and via which you'll be able to access the data residing in your buckets. Now we spoke about access control list, all right, the management policies using IAMs that are there, that is identity and access management. We spoke about AWS regions that are tied and that are related to the S3 buckets that you will be provisioning. Then we spoke about a very interesting service of another, say, I would say a subsidiary or a subcomponent of your S3, all right, which is your Amazon Glacier. And with Amazon Glacier, we saw that whenever it comes to working with your low cost data and you want to know, you know that, hey, my data is not going to be accessed for on a frequent manner, and you want to have a secure and a durable service at, that, at a lower cost, definitely Glacier S3 is something that's recommended. So we saw that with your Glacier S3, you will be able to uh, do the capacity planning, hardware provisioning, data replication, say migrations that you're looking into. It's very much possible on the AWS that requires to address based upon the scaling that you're looking into. And then we saw different storage classes of your S3 Glacier, S3 Glacier that is there. And we try to differentiate the key differences and what are the factors that based upon which you can decide whether to go with an S3 in a particular business scenario or a Glacier S3 for that matter. We also spoke about the factors why that you need to consider as a part of when you are choosing your AWS region for your infrastructure, whether it's latency, compliance, availability, cost, services, and so on. So now let's quickly get into the lab part. All right. And let me give you a walkthrough of very specifically how you can create a static website, all right, or how you can configure a static website in Amazon S3. Now, this is my console.aws.amazon.com. Okay, this is the console from where on this web console where I'm going to be managing my web, say, cloud resources on the AWS cloud for that matter. So I've already logged in with my particular account. You can see that, and you can see the specific, say, the location that's there taken into consideration. So as a part of, say, demonstrating these concepts with respect to your Amazon S3, all right, where I'm going to run my host my particular web application, static web application website within my Amazon S3. So as I said, with your respect to your account, you will always start by creating a bucket. So let's quickly get into creating a particular bucket. All right, let's click on create bucket. Now you see here, uh, so first aspect as you log into your particular portal or this particular console, AWS console with your account is that within your Amazon S3, all right, for the services that are there are different bunch of services that are there. Okay, let me just take you there. All right, there are different services that are there. All right, so in this case, in my case, I'm going to go with Amazon S3. All right, and in my Amazon S3, all right, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a bucket. All right, the first aspect, whenever you want to place your applications, you will start by creating a bucket. Now, already I have some, say, buckets that have been created a bit ago, all right, which I created a bit ago, just to test for the lab. But here you can see that I told you, right, you have what S3 storage lens coming into picture. So you can use this dashboard to monitor, say, very specifically, all right, you can to generate for the dashboard configurations that's required. Definitely you can view that for that matter. Now we are not going to get into that part, but let's quickly get into how we can create a bucket in your Amazon S3. So we come to the buckets, create bucket. Now for every bucket, if you remember the step number one, if you remember, I did say that to create a bucket, you will have to give a particular name. So let's keep a name as, say, AWS. Uh, my bucket. All right. Okay. So I gave my bucket a name. Now, the second aspect is that associated with a bucket is that you will have to choose a particular region associated with a bucket. So let's click on a region. So for me, in my case, let me select something nearby mine, which is Asia Pacific, Mumbai South, all right, which is very nearby to my location for that matter. Now, what I'm going to do is that, all right, uh, now, when we choose a particular AWS region, what you need to ensure is that you will ensure that it is very close to your geographical location so that you minimize what the latency and the cost. And of course, you will be able to what address the regulatory requirements that are there. Now, I'm not going to change any of these aspects. I'm not going to do that. All right. Let's accept all these default settings that are there. Later on, I would be changing this. I would show you this later. All right, the bucket versioning, if you want to enable it, you want to disable it, if you want to create encryption to be done for your objects that are going to be stored in your buckets, it's very much possible. All right, and to do that you can use certain encryption key types using S3 managed keys or KMS, which is your key management service of your AWS. Do you want to have a bucket key? Do you want to enable it, disable? Let's keep it default and let's create a particular bucket. uh Okay, a name already exists. All right, let's see. And then let's create bucket. All right, you see that the bucket has been created. So you can see that along with my previous buckets, uh, this has been say, so as you remember with a particular account, you can have what 100 buckets. And in case if you want to leverage or you want to increase the capacity, definitely you can do that. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to enable static web hosting to be done for my particular bucket. So if you remember, this is the bucket that I created. All right. So let me choose this bucket of mine. And here in this bucket, you can see that you can manage different objects that are there. You can set the properties that you want for bucket versioning that you're looking into, tags, encryption, and so on and so on. See, you can monitor it with respect to your cloud, trail data, events to keep track of the events. In case if you want to monitor the, say, generate the notifications for your events using SNS or SQS, you can do that. You want to lock an object, all right. If you want to say build event driven application using S3 event notification, you can go with event bridge. Again, we are not discussing this here, but yes, this is what we are going to come into. So let's quickly come into the properties part of your particular AWS bucket that I created, and let's come down, and if you come on the bottom you will see that static web hosting. Okay, you will see static web hosting. Now this is automatically when I created, it's disabled. So now I need to change it. So let's click on edit and let's click on enable. All right. And when I enable it, you will see here when you come down, all right, it is asking me for an index document. All right. So what we do is let's give an index document where is the HTML page that I already have, which I have placed. All right. Let's give that index document that is here. All right. And then you can specifically, if needed, you can specify the error documents that you're looking into. So I have an error document by the name of HTML 404. So definitely you can have the pages that you want to represent here to represent the error code that you're looking into. And once it's been done, so this is the index page that I'm looking into, which I'm going to be placing or as a part of my website's default page, which I'm going to be looking into. Let's click on save changes and you can see that uh, I have edited the static web hosting being done for that matter. So if you come down here, you can see this. This is the access. This is the website endpoint access point that can be taken into consideration. If you click on this, it says what error. Of course, I haven't added the data to that. So let's wait for that. Let me add that text, upload that file, and then this should work very well. So I have enabled static web hosting. All right. And this is that particular what the access point or the endpoint that will be used for communicating or say hosting your particular website that you're looking into. All right. Now what I'm going to do is that my website is something which is not which is say by default when you would have say created a particular um, website being enabled here in this case, you will see that Amazon S3 blocks public access to your account, okay, and to the data that you place in your buckets. So if you want to use your buckets to host a particular static website, all right, and and you want to say enable that, you want to unblock the public access settings very specifically. That's what we are going to do here. So we will come back to the buckets, and here in the permissions, if you come to the permissions tab here, if you come down, you can see that block public access for the buckets. Let's click on edit. You can see that it is blocking all the public access. See the kind of permissions that it's blocking. Let's unblock it. All right, ensuring that the public access to my bucket and the data for the website is being made available. And let's hit save changes. Okay. Yes, so it says what it will make it publicly available, okay, and becoming more public. So yes, that's what I'm looking for. Let's confirm that and let's hit confirm. Yes, you see that it's been edited for that matter. All right. And then what you're going to do on the next level is that we will add a bucket policy that will make your bucket content publicly available for that matter. So let's come to the permissions. All right. And let's come to the bucket policy. All right, you can see here. So if you remember when we were discussing earlier as a part of what formulating your bucket policies, I did say that you will have what JSON based a script very specifically, which will define the access to the objects that are going to be stored in the buckets for that matter. So I already have a JSON script here. All right, I will use this JSON script that is here. And let me put this policy here. Just a second. All right, let's copy this and let's paste it. Why? Okay, let's click on edit. And yes, sorry. Okay, let's paste it here. Now, when you're pasting it, all right, here you will see that this is to be applied on your resources, all right, on your resource. So here I need to specify the name of the bucket on which this policy is to be applied. All right, this bucket policy. If you remember, if you see here in my case, it's my AWS hyphen my bucket. Let's put that name here. So I'm trying to say that apply this access policy to get the object from the S3, all right, for a public read get object operation to be done very specifically on this particular version, on this particular bucket where the object resides for that matter. Now let's click on hit changes. All right, yes, successfully I was able to edit the bucket policy. All right, now what we are going to do here is on the next level is that we are trying to configure the index document. If you remember, uh, let's come here. Where is it? Where is it? Um, just a second. Right. All right. Let's come back to our console. Yes. So in the console, all right. Okay, in the console where you're going to be placing your objects, all right. Now what you're going to do is that if you remember the index.html file or what that I was trying to say, the starter page for my website, I need to upload that. So let's quickly upload that. All right. And it says that either you can drag and drop those files that are there or you can add that folder. So let me add that file here and let me check where it is. Documents. All right. Yes. See here my index.html. Let me select this. All right. And let's click on this and let me click on save upload. You see that's been uploaded. All right. So earlier when you would have clicked on the access point, you would have seen an error. In this case, you will be directed into a very specific destination with respect to the index.html that is there. Now let's also configure an error document. All right. Uh, let's come back here, objects. Let's upload this. Let's upload the error file that is 404. All right. Let's open this and let's save this to particular bucket that is there. All right. Within my bucket, I have done that. All right. Now what I'm going to do here is, okay, now let's quickly check. Let's quickly test our, so earlier when we tested it, you saw a forbidden error coming up, right? Now let's go back to our bucket very specifically, okay? And okay, under the buckets, all right. Let's select the bucket that I lately created, all right? And then let's choose the properties tab. And in the properties tab, if you come here, let's click on this. See here. So when you clicked on this particular website, or sorry, this access point for your website, which was hosted, which was going to be placed within your AWS bucket, you can see being there. So that was the demonstration of the particular. Say you see that the website was what you have the website being hosted in your Amazon S3. So this S3, that is the website that you hosted in the S3. Okay, it is available with what Amazon S3 website endpoint. You can see the endpoint here. You can see here. So it might be with respect to your business requirement, you might have a domain, okay, and you want to place the website with respect to that domain. Definitely that's possible. Again, that's not something that we are discussing here as a part of the scope, but yes, your Amazon S3 supports what? Root domain support to serve the request for your particular domains that you're looking into. All right, so this is a short demonstration of placing your static website within your Amazon AWS S3 for that matter. All right. All right. Okay. So with that, we come to a wrap on the particular, say, the demonstration part. All right. Let's quickly take up in terms of, say, addressing the questions, if there are any questions that needs to be addressed in terms of the part that we have discussed. Yes, do we have any questions there?
Thank you. That was most informative.
I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. And now I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Remy, our vendor manager, to introduce our promotions and webinar related courses.
Thank you so much. And once again, a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined our today's session. Now, I would like to take you all through some of our handpicked resources, which we think will immensely help in accelerating your learning journey on AWS. Starting off with a quick overview of Netcom Learning, who we are. So, what sets us apart from the other cloud training leaders is something that we have defined here. We have been recognized as the #1 partner of Microsoft, and we feel immense proud in mentioning here that we have recently been awarded the Learning Partner of the Year Award 2022, which was around 3,900 nominations from all around the world, and Microsoft recognized Netcom Learning as the #1 partner. Also, a major driver of our expertise is our 24 plus years of industry presence, having serviced over 80% of the Fortune 500 companies in the B2B and the B2G space. Moving to the recommended courses, which we think will best suit your learning journey. What you see right now are some of our upcoming training batches on the top courses, which you can register for. The dates have been mentioned, but in case you have any queries regarding the same, you can at any time reach out to our team. We also have a mix of the most relevant resources, which will help you get a better understanding on some of the other AWS courses. Coming to some of the customized programs that Netcom Learning has for its learners, we can start with the AWS Cloud Skilling Program that helps you to develop role-based cloud skills, working side by side our champion-level AWS authorized instructors who train cloud professionals on the latest AWS technologies and tools. So as a part of the program, you and your organization may also be eligible for free AWS certification exam vouchers and extended lab facilities for up to 5 weeks on the completion of the training. So it's a highly customizable program wherein the idea is that we connect our instructors, our AWS authorized instructors, with your teams to understand the learning needs of your team, and basis on the understandings, we devise the entire program as per the learning needs of the team. Our free AWS e-learning resources follow a self-paced training model. So this is a free access resources that you can access at any time, wherein you also get the liberty of accessing the extensive course-related videos on the go, covering the availability on the device of your choice. So meaning doesn't matter if you are at your home, in your office, or if you are traveling to anywhere, you can just access the courses on your device and you can get started with your learning. So please feel free to access these free resources and make the most out of them. Additionally, please feel free to register for a demo to get an idea on what our 2-hour private group training on AWS entails. This training will be delivered by our AWS authorized instructors with an agenda of understanding the different AWS services and solutions, and will be beneficial for you to devise a roadmap as per your team's learning needs. So as a learning partner, we highly focus on devising our the learning roadmaps as per your team's understanding or your needs. So we will do our best in order to first understand what the requirements are and then to come up with a roadmap as per the learner's needs. Moving on to our AWS Learning Need Analysis, which is a free self-assessment tool that helps you to identify your organization's cloud skills gap, that includes the participating employees to complete an adaptive e-survey that takes no more than 15 minutes depending on the role. So the idea here is to come up with a targeted and cost-effective training and certification plan which is right for your organization and that also addresses the specific needs of your employees. Next, we have the Learning Passport, which is a flexible team training package specifically designed and customized for the number of learners you have. So the Learning Passport is redeemable across our entire portfolio, which covers more than 4,000 plus official courses, and that is valid over 12 months. Now coming to the Netcom Plus, which is an exciting solution. So Netcom Plus is a learning subscription for our enterprise customers. All you need to do is pay one time and you get unlimited access to authorized training from our top vendors like AWS, Microsoft, Cisco, and more for a span of 12 months. So currently we have 3 packages available. You can get started for free with our silver pack, which allows you access to 300 plus learning modules. You can also upgrade to the gold pack for just $199 and access 400 plus learning modules in addition to the silver pack benefits. And lastly, we highly recommend our most popular offering of all, which is also ideal for our enterprise customers, which is the platinum package of $2,999. And that can be unlocked if you have more than 10 learners. In terms of the benefits, so it gives you the access to 400 plus learning modules and 100 plus virtual instructor-led courses across the top vendors. In addition to our custom programs, do feel free to also go through some of our additional resources, which are curated keeping the learner's needs, which is your needs in demand. And let us know in the comments if you have any recommendations for us with respect to coming up with any of such assets. Out of our virtual sessions, you can also catch the relevant updates related to IT and business training through our social media handles. So please feel free to follow us for all the latest updates. Moving on. So the CEO of Netcom Learning is an avid reader. So Russell, who is the CEO of Netcom Learning, and you can check out a glimpse of his book, which is a practical, actionable guide on how to boost performance, successfully manage change, and innovate more quickly. So building an innovative learning organization is the book name, and you can check it out. You can download the chapter 1 to go through the summary. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Remy. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. If you haven't yet, it's not too late to pop your questions into the question panel.
Our first question is, what are the capabilities of AWS WA tool?
All right. So as we discussed with respect to AWS, all right, okay, and the well-architected tool that we discussed. See, your WA tool is that service, okay, provided by your AWS, which will help you to review, improve your workloads based upon whatever the pillars that we discussed. Okay, it will and we will you will be able to formulate aspects very specifically. It will provide you with certain questionnaires and a dashboard which customers can use it in terms of say adopting best practices and identify the areas for improvement that you're looking into. So what your customers can do in that case is that with respect to your WA tool, that is your well architected tool, is that you can review their workloads, all right, before or even after deployment, making use of this particular tool anytime during the life cycle of workloads of the particular workload that you are deployed for that matter. So it provides you with guidance. It provides you with recommendations based upon each pillars that can be adopted and that can be beneficial for that factor.
Next question is, can Amazon S3 be used for backup and disaster recovery? And if so, how?
Definitely. So one of the features, one of the say benefits when we spoke about Amazon S3 is that uh, we can use S3 when it comes to say storing your backups, okay, especially for your critical data. Your applications that are there. So if you are looking for creating a disaster recovery solution, your S3 can be taken into consideration for that matter. So users, definitely you will be able to back up your files in your Amazon S3, and then if needed, you can replicate it across your different AWS regions, making it more highly available and durable for that matter. All right.
Last question for the day is, what are the best practices when it comes to choosing AWS global infrastructures?
All right. Very interesting question to be addressed about, because yes, that's a question that most of everybody will take it into account as and when we are implementing a particular cloud workload. See, one of the important aspect is that whenever the best practices is that use AWS global infrastructure for that matter. Okay, use the global infrastructure for your regions, availability zones, edge locations that are there. Okay, and utilize this particular global infrastructure to build your highly reliable, available, and scalable architectures that you're looking into. Go for a multi-region architecture that can be beneficial. You can use AWS Cloud front for that matter if you want to reduce latency, improve performance for that matter, do say proper testing of your architecture in different regions, monitor the performance for that matter, and in that way you will ensure that you meet your particular application meets the requirements for that matter. So choosing the right AWS region for your architecture is very important decision, which of course will affect your performance, your compliance, again the cost factor for that matter. So consider those factors which we discussed earlier, whether it's your latency, whether it's your say the cost, availability of services for a particular region that's been available. So follow those best practices that are there as and when you're using your AWS global infrastructure in terms of considering and implementing scalable and viable, say well architected solutions to be deployed on the AWS cloud.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.